Welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of college basketball. Dark times right now for the Purdue Boilermakers. A lot of frustration pent up from a long time starting to spill over after this most recent devastating loss. But without further ado, let's run it. This one was brutal. I have to start off by apologizing. All of this is clearly my fault for going to these past two games in person, because now we are sitting at a point with the most uncertainty, least confidence, and least faith in this squad as a fan base that I have seen probably ever in terms of where we think we are supposed to be and where we are and the public sentiment about it throughout the fan base. But there's still more basketball to be played, and I refuse to just be done with this team until the curtain falls on the seniors class's careers. All right, let's get into the game though. Starting off, the first 7 minutes were not bad. I didn't feel great about them though, because the main reason and really the only reason why we were doing okay at all was the three ball. Um, the three was the only thing falling at the beginning, so much so that it felt that we were that we were starting to pass up opportunities to shoot shots that we always take, that we take and make at a high clip, because we already felt within that first like 5 minutes that, whoa, certain easy things aren't coming easy and the shots aren't falling. Whether it be the mid-range shots, TKR's push shots, post-ups, we were missing layups, missing hook shots. Um, I'll talk more about TKR specifically when we get to him, but he was very much a tale of two halves. First half was horrible for him, but we were 8 for 14 from three in the first half. We were 3 for 15 in the second half, and all three came in the last 3 minutes. We looked fantastic. We were shooting like 60 something percent through the first, I think it was like that 7, 8 minutes when those threes were falling. And we looked great for that specifically. But other than that, it looked really out of sorts. I mean, we got off to, you know, it was a bit bumpy. We went up 8-6, then 10-6, got it up as high as 16-9 at the 13-minute mark. That's that 7 minutes in that I talk about. That's when the wheels just fell off. But I'll get into that more in a little bit of second, or in a little second. My brain's going to be kind of all over the place for this because there's just so many different things, both at a team level, at an individual player level, and I want to talk about them all. But my thoughts have not been any less organized when it comes to talking about this team and how I feel about them, because I want to be so unbelievably upset at the way we're playing, but I also want to acknowledge that it's not over. We still have basketball to be played. We still have the Big Ten tournament to get right and still try to see if we can hang a banner this year. And we still have the NCAA tournament where literally anything can happen with a team like this, an offense like this. But this game specifically, we're going to roll back on another issue that has been the case this entire year, and that's our perimeter defense. I've talked about it in previous videos about other teams shooting from the outside against us. It's because I will say it again, like I said at that point, it's because we give up so many open looks. This was another case of they didn't really want to try to beat us from inside. Not that they, stayed outside the entire game. They ended up with 24 of their 82 points in the paint. But I mean, they were perfectly fine to live from three. And when they didn't live from three was when they started attacking us off of closeouts. And oh my Lord, I would love to know what Purdue's strategy is, or game plan, or whatever they do pregame for the days before some of these games, to understand personnel, because this has been one of the few seasons where feel like I have been able to sit down and identify that it feels like we do not know the personnel we're up against outside of star players. It's like we say, okay, who's their main scorer, who's their top two scorers, and everybody else we're just like, mm. But even in this one, I mean, you have to know when you're playing Ohio State that Bruce Thornton is going to be a guy with the ball in his hands a lot. He's going to put you in ball screens. He's going to want to get to the basket. He's going to want to play physical basketball. And John Mobley Jr. is going to want to sit outside and shoot as many threes as possible. And both of those guys did that. And somehow it felt like we were surprised by that, especially when we left John Mobley Jr. open for three countless times. Our defensive game plan right now is a hope and a prayer, and it's embarrassing. Looking at Ken Palm, I believe Ken Palm still has us because again, it factors in all of the data. They still have us as the 33rd best defense in the country. Right now, we're playing like maybe a borderline top 100 team. We're not playing like a top 35 defense right now. Um, and the biggest thing is why do we close out on some of these guys? So many of these guys, almost all of these guys, like the prime Steph Curry. If you're leaving John Mobley Jr. out there, which we did plenty, yes, you have to get a contest up on it. You have to get out there because chances are he's probably firing it. That's kind of all he does. But I saw Jacobson, I saw Benter, I saw a couple of these guys close out on guys like Christoph Tilly, like Devin Royal, even this Tyson Chapman kid who had two threes and missed both of them. We're closing out on these guys like it is 100% chance that they are going to shoot it. And if we don't get there, oh my God, they're going to make it every time. Yes, I get we've left so many open threes. We have to close out hard because we're nowhere near them. And that's another problem on its own. But Jacobson in his minutes, I'm going to talk about him in a minute. Jacobson in his minutes closed out to Christoph Tilly like he was guaranteed to fire this thing, which I'm not even sure how many threes Christoph Tilly has taken in his in this season for Ohio State because he was transferred from Santa Clara. He is 12 for 51 on the season, good for 23.5%, and we are flying out there. He pump fakes, he drives, he draws one of Jacobson's two fouls in his 4 to 5 minutes on the floor. We have no we have no discipline. And that goes way farther than just defense. I'm talking about all across the game in terms of having a spine and getting hit with a punch and being able to fire back. It feels like this team can't fire back. It feels like we get hit and we wilt. Like I said, those first 7 minutes, oh, we're hitting threes, we're doing some things well. All of a sudden we go on a horrible stretch there, and then it seems like, oh no, it's happening again. And then we just have glossy eyes for the rest of the game. That's what it felt like. And I was in there in person. I was sitting there watching this unfold, which with, by the way, a very large group of Purdue fans. There were a lot of us there because once again, our fan base still travels better than almost any in the country. Um, but it just doesn't make sense to me. Another thing that doesn't make sense to me is how we play a game against Michigan State, one of the elite rebounding teams in the country, and we box out and we battle and we get the defense. We beat them maybe just by a little bit, but we beat one of the premier rebounding teams in the rebounding margin, and then we come here to Ohio State and we just get slapped around on the boards by a bad rebounding team. And there's reasoning behind that. It isn't just, you know, oh, they were super aggressive. Oh, we got unlucky. First off, they're 150th nationally in offensive rebound and can't even speak. They are 150th nationally in offensive rebounding and 209th in defensive rebounding. They out rebounded us in this game 36 to 29. Dead even on the offensive rebounding. We both ended up with 10 offensive rebounds, and we had 19 defensive rebounds to their 26. But the big reason for that is the fouling. And that's what I want to talk about next because these two go hand in hand in a lot of games, but in this game specifically because, man, we put in some wildly different rotations than we're used to because we could not stay out of foul trouble. We foul out our starting front court. Clough picks up these stupid bump fouls on the outside, these stupid, oh, we're trying to go for the offensive rebound, but then we just end up assaulting them and picking up another foul. We can't afford, as a lineup, we don't have a deep enough and good enough front court, and we're not a good enough team rebounding team outside of our front court to just be like, we can throw away fouls here and there, especially at the five spot, especially with Clough. Clough plays 19 minutes in this game. He ends up with 5 rebounds in those 9 minutes, or in those 19 minutes, excuse me. First of all, I don't think that's good enough anyway. Second of all, why are we committing these asinine fouls? Because we're trying to make these guys do things they're not good at. The one thing that really makes, almost no sense to me throughout everything that over the course of the season is why are we still forcing our bigs to hard hedge when we were perfectly fine for the last 2 seasons to accept a center that just couldn't hedge because of his feet, because of his speed, and quite frankly, feels like Edie almost would have had a better chance with some of this. Um, why are we forcing that upon Clough and Jacobson when it's clear time and time again that these guys cannot move laterally fast enough, don't have enough body control because that's so much of the fouls that are getting called on Oscar Clough, on Daniel Jacobson, and even some on TKR in some of these situations is within the style of aggression that we're playing, we don't have enough body control to keep from fouling them. You had five fouls from Clough, 5 from TKR, and we had to go to TKR at the 5 for a bunch of this game, or at least a fair amount of this game because of the foul trouble between Oscar Clough and then Daniel Jacobson just being flat out unplayable. Um, and that caused more fouls for him trying to fight for rebounds and various things. But so much of it goes back to that discipline. It's like why are we just okay with giving up these stupid fouls? Because either A, frustration, TKR's last foul, the foul of the game within like a minute left. He was just done. He wanted to leave. That's another body language thing. But we just don't have good enough control over ourselves and understanding what we need to do. But it's not even that we're just entirely playing with too much emotion. It's almost like we're playing with too little emotion because like TKR will play with emotion and he'll show it and he'll get into it. And he was probably the only player in this game that looked like he really wanted to fight, wanted to try to battle back. Everyone else was like, I hope we knock down some shots. I hope they missed some shots, and man, I sure hope we can get a rebound. At least he was battling. Um, but but when it comes to that defense, we just need to put those guys in drop coverage because we need to have them on the floor. What happened in this game is when Clough got in foul trouble and played 19 minutes, and we couldn't play Jacobson more than the 4. You put TKR out there, you put Benter out there. Benter was getting absolutely bullied in his 23 minutes by Devin Royal. Devin Royal ends up with 9 rebounds, 6 offensive rebounds because TKR was too busy taking up, Christoph Tilly or Ivan Njegovan, that's how you pronounce his name. Those guys trying to battle with him to keep either one of those off the board, and the rest of our guards just can't rebound, don't rebound well. I mean, shoot, you got 4 rebounds out of Fletcher Lawyer this game. That's more than usual. And guess what? It wasn't because he boxed out, it was because the ball fell to him on some of these long rebounds. They were lucky in a lot of other senses. Most of the times we don't get those rebounds either because our bigs are able to be down low and corral them, or once again, as happened so much in this game, they just got offensive rebounds. Braden, for the first time in his career, I repeat, Braden Smith, for the first time in his 4-year Purdue career, plays a game without getting a single rebound. If you want to tell me that something's not wrong with this team as a whole, that alone should tell you. He played 36 minutes and does not find a rebound. He played 2 years with the National Player of the Year, Zach Edey, who averaged double-digit rebounds and still never played a game without recording a rebound until now. But that was the epitome of this game is we had to go small and voila, we're back to the same issues we had last year, except for the fact that now we don't have 6'7" Cam Heidi and we don't have 6'5" Miles Colvin. Not that I'm going to pretend like they would be massive difference makers in this game, but we're now shorter than we were last year as opposed to taller on average. And that showed. That showed when we struggled time and time again to both attack the offensive glass. I mean, we got 10 offensive rebounds. That was the one thing that Benter was good for. He had 3 rebounds on the game, and 2 of them were offensive. TKR ends up with 3, Clough ends up with 2, even CJ Cox finds himself with an offensive rebound. But it's just frustrating because it goes to it goes to our roster creation, where we brought in Clough to be the answer at rebounding, but we just didn't factor in what he would be defensively, and we're just okay to exist with whatever he brings on the defensive end, except for the fact that that's our biggest downfall at the center position right now is the lack of ability to play perimeter defense and quite frankly, in a lot of cases, interior defense because Clough is not a shot blocker. He'll get a block shot every once in a while, but he's also not super great at just the traditional, back to the basket post up defense either. He'll push, he'll battle, but there are a lot of stronger guys that are able to, just get him off balance enough to get, whatever little floater or spin off him or something like that up. And then you've got Jacobson who can't do either. He's a shot blocker, but I'm sorry, Jacobson is not a primary shot blocker. He is a help defense shot blocker. He is a guy you want to plant in the lane so that other people can drive and he can swat it out of the air as he's watching it from 3 miles away so he can time it up. If somebody's putting their shoulder into his chest, he is not blocking the shot. I promise you. He may have gotten 2 blocks like that this entire season. It may be, if that. But with both of those guys being the way that they are, our defense at the 5 position sucks. It sucks. And that has a big effect then on everything because if we want to hedge, we get fouls. If we want to do a bit more of a softer hedge, they're probably dribbling around that, and now we have our center out of the paint. If they're able to do that and we're not able to recover, excuse me, they're able to kick to the outsides a lot, take whatever shot, and now our center, instead of having position down low, is trying to run back or get back into the lane from outside. And we all know what's happened when teams have gotten our centers to just exist on the 3-point line, take shots, and go crash the glass that way. So, I mean, that's been horrible. But back to the roster creation aspect of things, you bring in Clough for that. But while letting Cam Heidi and Miles Colvin leave, again, they do whatever they want, but allowing them to leave and saying, okay, we need to see what we want our roster to be. You see the emergence of Jack Benter. Cool. If they saw that coming longer than any of us because they see him in practice behind closed doors, that's great. But then you're like, okay, what we want is this 6'7" 3-point shooting sniper who can't rebound, not physical, can't box out. And whether they knew it or not, they were kind of hyping up his defensive versatility a lot in the preseason. That has not been any farther from the truth. He has been lost out there in his extremely limited minutes on defense, whether it be against teams in, whatever lineups that teams throw out there in garbage time, or in the 5 minutes that Liam Murphy made an appearance in this game. Because that's how bad it got. We went to Liam Murphy, who has only ever been in garbage time this year, or against some of the mid-major teams at the beginning when TKR was injured and you had Benter and Liam Murphy playing splitting the 4 minutes. We are in desperate, desperate need of that wing defender. We're in desperate need of that Lance Jones role that propelled us to that next level in our national championship appearance here in 2024. A lot of people might want to say, "Oh, but that's CJ Cox." Well, the problem is first of all, that's one guy. And second of all, we had the ability to go pick up a piece, to go find a guy that fit the role that we needed on this roster. And we went and got another three-point shooter. We've got a lot of guys that can shoot threes between our starting lineup. Jakari can shoot well enough. Benter obviously can shoot. Omer can shoot. Daniel Jacobson's supposed to be able to shoot. Was the missing aspect in our team what we needed was a three-point shooter? It wasn't. And that's the reason why he's not seeing the floor, because he doesn't fill a need. He does everything that Jack Benter does, except for the fact that he's worse on defense, he's worse rebounding, and he's worse physically. And he hasn't shown enough of promise from three to be like, oh, he's a 70% three-point shooter when he's out there, so he has to be out there for at least 7, 8 minutes a game to be able to, you know, be able to look past the defensive and rebounding liability aspect of it, because that's the problem. We already have one of those, and his name is Fletcher Lawyer, and he's a better shooter than you are, probably. So that's been really frustrating because we had the opportunity to make to find that missing piece, to make that big time move. And it felt like Clough was that move, and it really hasn't been outside of some strong showings to start the season. Um, and it certainly hasn't been for Liam Murphy. But speaking of Liam Murphy and some of those guys, our bench was god awful in this game. They didn't just play bad, like they were out there and they were trying to do their thing, like shots weren't falling. It just looked like they were getting cardio out there. Like Liam Murphy plays the 5 minutes. He was 0 for 2 from three, a rebound and an assist, but one of those threes was an air ball. But once again, what can you really expect out of a guy that has seen maybe 40 total minutes in the entire season, coming in a game that is not particularly great for inducing confidence in a shooter coming off the bench? Um, Omer Meyer plays 11 minutes. He goes 0 for 4, 0 for 2 from 3, with a rebound, and assist, a turnover. This was one of them where finally his hot streak ended. You know, he was 0 for 2 from 3, and the mid-range shots didn't fall either. Um, Jack Benter, I mentioned, obviously he got bullied on the glass, but he was pretty much nowhere to be found anywhere else either. He scored 3 points, 1 for 3 from the floor, 0 for 1 from three. He made his one free throw that he got, with 3 rebounds and assists. The one thing is he did get 2 steals, so props to him for that. 2 of our 5 steals on the game. Um, Jakari Harris plays 13 minutes, 2 points, 1 of 1 shooting, 1 rebound, 1 turnover. So again, these guys were out there, they just don't weren't doing anything. That's why, part of it is Braden was shooting the ball a lot. We'll talk about him when we get to our box score stuff here, coming up pretty soon, in terms of the individual player stuff. But first, I want to talk about Daniel Jacobson. Daniel Jacobson was unplayable in this game. And there's a reason he only played 4 minutes. He came onto the floor. See if I can pull this up. Yeah. So we build a 16-9 lead in the first 7 minutes. We're making threes. We're doing what we need to do. We're getting some stops. We're getting some rebounds. We sub out Oscar Clough after, let's see, I believe this was his first foul. So Oscar Clough picks up his first foul with just under 13 to go in the first half. We sub him out. We bring in Daniel Jacobson. And over the span of the next couple of minutes, we just crumble with him on the floor. We immediately get a foul on, well, first of all, they score a 4-foot dunk on the following possession. Jacobson nowhere to be found. We miss a jumper. Tilly gets the rebound, foul on Jacobson. This was the one I'm pretty sure this was the one where Jacobson closed out, Tilly pump faked and drove on him and drew a foul. Because once again, why are we closing out on Christoph Tilly like he's a sniper? Tilly goes and makes his first free throw, misses his second. We go down and TKR bad pass turnover. Then they miss a three. Jacobson got a rebound. He got a rebound. CJ Cox misses a three. They come back the other end. We give an open three to John Mobley Jr. Then Braden misses a jumper. We use a coach's challenge on just the fact that TKR was upset and wanted the ball back. I really don't know what we saw or what made. I mean, maybe they saw something in their replay uh that made him challenge it, but it certainly didn't feel like it was that great of a challenge. And then we immediately lost a timeout and a challenge right there, or our challenge for the entire game. Um, but we go through the next possession and another foul on Daniel Jacobson. And Daniel Jacobson gets subbed out after 2 minutes, and all of a sudden it's a tie game. So there goes 7 points right there. Then Jacobson comes back in the second half, and let's see, where was it? Oh no, Jacobson comes back in with a minute left to go in the first half, and they make a free throw. They go, Braden Smith makes two free throws to bring it back to a 3-point game, and on the final possession of the half, Bruce Thornton gets in the lane and makes a layup because once again, our shot blocker is not a shot blocker or is not blocking shots because we ended up with zero block shots on this game. Um, all in all, I'm not even gonna bother trying to find the last stretch. Jacobson was minus 13 in 4.5-ish minutes. That's unplayable. Get him off the court. But that's the problem. When we got him off the court, now all of a sudden we have no size. We can't rebound. But the problem is when he's on the floor, he's not rebounding anyway most of the time because he gets pushed around like it's nothing. Because it looks like he doesn't care. It looks like he doesn't want to play physical. He wants to just exist out there and be able to pick it off the top. It doesn't work in the Big Ten. It doesn't matter what Big Ten team you're coming up against. It does not work. It worked in the it worked in the non-con against some of the mid majors, which is why you saw him have some pretty great games there. But outside of him, the rest of our bench, Jakari Harris was minus 19 in his 13 minutes. Like I said, he was 1 for 1, so he got one shot off. But in his 13 minutes, he was just kind of running around. He refused to pull a three. He just looked hesitant every time he caught the ball if it wasn't, wide open, which is why he didn't shoot it. And on defense, he just looked lost. There's some games where he looks like a great defender and like the best defender on our team. This game was not one of them. It was a horrible storm for all of this. And then Omer Meyer, obviously, he was 0 for 4. He was negative 11 in his 11 minutes. Probably would have been different if he could just hit a couple of his shots, but he finally cooled off. Um, the biggest problem is just no matter the score, no matter how close we cut it to, because we cut it to some pretty solid numbers there within the last, 5 minutes where there's plenty enough time. If you just lit a fire on yourself saying, hey, we're going to lock up now. We're going to play some of this physical, aggressive, but under control defense like teams seem to do with us and that we can't handle. But we never did. There was no fire. We were just shell shocked, like we seemingly always do against Jake Diebler of all coaches. The dude's been here for 3 years. Ohio State has never made an NCAA tournament, which, by the way, they probably will now because they got this win. They're still on the edge, but unless they lose every single game, aka the last regular season game, and their first Big Ten tournament game, they're probably in the NCAA tournament for the first time. But Jake Diebler's been there 3 years. First as an interim, and then 2 years now as their full-time head coach. And he's 3-0 against Matt Painter and Purdue in the best years of Purdue basketball, possibly ever. Maybe not last year, but the year before, and the interim year, and this year, two of Purdue's best teams ever. Statistically, wins, success-wise, wherever you are in the AP poll, whatever. But the last thing that I want to do here is go through player by player, at least from the starting lineup, because I didn't really talk about them more specifically. Trey Kaufman-Renn was the highlight, but specifically of the second half. The first half, he looked horrible. He was missing easy jump hooks. He was getting pretty much to his spot. The big thing is that he was being stubborn as hell for no good reason. I forgot who it was. It might have been Devin Royal. It might have been Tilly. One of them was just sitting on his left shoulder, banging him three, four times as he tries to just throw his way into the paint and put up a right hook. And he refused to spin back to his off shoulder. He's done that so many times throughout the season. In various games, he understands that his counter is lethal when they are sitting on that shoulder. But in this first half, he was like, I want to see a jump hook fall because he wasn't having a ton of success. I don't even know what he had in the first half. It was like three and or 2 and 6, I think. He had his six of his 9 rebounds in total, but only had 2 points on like 1 of 4 shooting or something like that. Well, in the second half, he turned it on. In the second half, we did the same thing that we did when we were down at IU and some of these other games, in the Michigan game, where it's, well, we can't seem to figure out how to make our offense work, so let's just give the ball to TKR and hope he can at least get us 2 points every time. And if he doesn't, oh dang, we're in trouble. He ends up with 19 because of that. So 19 and 9 looks great. No assists, a turnover. He was 3 for 5 from the free throw line. I think he started 3 for 3, and I was like, well, at least somehow TKR is making free throws, and then he missed his last two. I mentioned Clough, 2 points, 1 of 3 shooting, 5 rebounds, a turnover in his 19 minutes, and fouled out. And I guess I forgot to mention that TKR also fouled out. Um, yeah, he doesn't look good against Big Ten competition 90% of the time. That Nebraska game right now is feeling like the anomaly in Big Ten play. And that's a problem. You can look great in the non-conference, look great against the mid-major opponents because he was a great mid-major center. But is he a great Big Ten center? He's not looking like it. I hope he turns it around. I hope he drops a little bit of that Aussie optimism that he walks around with, like, oh man, you know, better luck next time, and just plays with a little bit more fire. Because when he does, when he's aggressive on the boards, doing it without fouling, he can look like a beast. But he didn't in this one. CJ Cox, he was he was pretty great. He was in his 29 minutes, he scored 13 points on 5 of 9 shooting, 3 for 7 from three. He had 2 rebounds and an assist to go along with it. It felt like he could have played more. It felt like he could have shot more. He was one of our highlights when it comes to just what happened when he was on the floor. He was one of the few players that had positive plus minus. He was +3. Um, and weirdly enough, with everything that I'm being upset about Clough not doing enough, we were +5 in Clough's time on the floor because how much of that was the first 7 minutes when we went up 7? How much of that was when he came back into the game and all of a sudden we have a little bit of defensive rebounding and we have a presence on the inside to at least stop them from getting whatever they want all the time. But either way, CJ Cox was solid, and he shoots almost 50% from three. Um, then you have Braden Smith. Braden Smith, we talked about in the last recap about how it seemed like he was kind of assist hunting, and we're better off if he just trusts his instincts and gets the passes while they're there and takes the shots while they aren't. Well, he did that a bit more this game, but the shots just didn't fall. He looked very, very off from especially the mid-range. He shot the ball okay from three. He was 3 for 8 from three, so he got some of those to fall. He was 3 for 4 from the free throw line, but he was 7 for 19. And oh, he also smoked a layup to end there, and that just felt like it was the epitome of this game as a whole when we smoked that right at the end there. But he ends up with 20 points because of those couple of threes, couple of baskets, 3 free throws. He does end up with 7 assists, 2 steals, and 2 turnovers. quite frankly, I mean, it's a different game if he just knocks down a shot. And it's not like they looked off. It's not like they looked bad, but he just didn't have the touch going this game. And unfortunately, you could see the frustration start to boil over, and he has been under fire for the combination of his body language during this game in terms of talking to Fletcher and Omer and TKR and getting upset with some of the few turnovers that we had, just kind of the way things happened. And then after the game, in the post-game presser, he might have said, I don't know, like 5 or 6 times when being asked about, what's going on with his team, like what's going wrong, what can you guys do to fix it? He didn't physically throw his hands up, but it felt like he sat there and just went, I don't know. He said if I knew what it was, we would have already done it. And that's something that I'm pretty sure he said during our 3 game skid earlier this season. And unfortunately, that's not what you want out of your best player. That's not the look that you want. That's not the sense of confidence that you want when your best player and, preseason national player of the year, preseason Big Ten player of the year, whatever he was, Big Ten player of the year last year, Bob Cousy Award winner. That's not what you want out of a leader on your team. And then he goes on social media and posts a clip of Allen Iverson talking about, you know, effort and I'm the MVP and blah, blah, blah. And a lot of people took that in sour taste. Now, I personally believe that he meant it more on the sense of, like, you guys are coming after me for effort, but I'm putting full effort into these games, game in and game out, which I do believe. I've never once thought that Braden Smith wasn't putting effort out on the floor. Even in our 3 game skid where it felt like tons of guys looked flat and just out of it and like they didn't care. He's diving on the floor. He's playing hard defense. He was still doing that, but he just didn't knock down his shots this game. And he let the frustration boil over a little bit too much. Um, so I don't know. I'm not overtly upset at him. I just want him to play better. I want him to make more shots. And you're going to have games like this. He's been shooting really, really well through Big Ten play. So I'm not surprised that there was a game where, he couldn't get shots to fall. Unfortunately, it was a game where we struggled to get everything else going as well. And he couldn't really get his playmaking going a ton outside of early on either. But lastly was Fletcher Lawyer, and he's the one he played 32 minutes. But this was one where I honestly rarely do I say that I wish we had Fletcher Lawyer out there all the time because of his defensive liability issues. But even though he didn't look great on defense in this one, he was one of the only guys that it felt like had confidence in their shot most points through this game. He ends up with 15 points on 5 of 10 shooting, 5 for 9 from three. So he shoots over 50% from three. And he had it really going early and then missed quite a few in the second half there and then got a couple to go late. But he adds 4 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal. And he led our team in plus minus with 8. So when he was on the floor, we outscored Ohio State by 8. And it's obviously really easy to go back and look at, everything that was happening and what ended up working and what ended up didn't what ended up not working. But when he was on the floor, it looked like we had a confident scorer and a confident shooter. And when he went off the floor, when Braden went off the floor for his 4 minutes, we looked out of sorts. So, all in all, I mean, this was a really rough game. It was a rough game to watch in person. I got to be honest, I wasn't even sitting there like pissed off and yelling and screaming. I was just sitting there, like I found myself just visibly shaking my head throughout so much of that second half as we just crumbled, showing lack of willpower, lack of discipline, lack of energy from our coach. Man, Fletcher got annihilated on a screen, and you could see his face was visibly red. And Painter is just so nonchalant. And I get that's just the way that he is, but man, I want him to stick up for his players sometimes. I want him to get a technical just for the sake of showing that he still has that fire, that those guys know that the same way that they fight for him and they fight for Purdue, that he's going to fight for them. And he's going to make sure that the refs know that when they're calling bullshit, that it's bullshit. And they didn't. He didn't. And there were plenty of weird calls throughout the course of this game that just felt like we just threw our hands up and said, "Why would you do that?" And then it's like, "Oh, my bad. Sorry, I'll go back and sit here back where I'm supposed to." and it just showed we just tuck our tail. And that's part of the problem with this team is I feel like that comes from the coaching staff. That comes from the coaching staff's decisions, that comes from the coaching staff's lack of fire, lack of motivational. Maybe it's because they think that that's not how this team gets motivated, that we're, a more mature, more disciplined team than we actually are, but it doesn't feel like that, not watching them. So, yeah, I mean, it's just incredibly frustrating. Um, but we're gonna see how it turns out. We still have two more regular season games, one on the road, one at home. And coming up next for us, we go visit Northwestern, which has been a place that we have not played well at previously. And despite Northwestern not being a very good basketball team this year, that has not stopped them in the past from giving us hell. And I'm going to hope and pray going into this game that we see a different version of Purdue come out than we did this game because I thought the answer was let's just get back on the road where we've been playing well, and that clearly wasn't the case in this game. So that's on Wednesday night at 8:30 Eastern. Um, we're gonna see how that one turns out. But that's all I've got for today. Time to take a deep breath and reset. Still a lot more to come. Still time to flip the switch and remember what got us to this point, good and bad. Stay tuned for these recaps through the end of the season, as well as conference breakdowns and our coverage of the tournament itself. But if you want more from us, like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, I'm out.